Hello, my soul brothers and soul sisters. I am Ron Smith, and this is the Dr. Ron Smith Investigating Show, where we separate the real from fake, the fact from fiction, and give you the winner's edge. And sometimes we're able to turn your water into wine. This is episode 26, and we're going to talk about the value of home ownership. I know home ownership was one of the things that really made my mother proud, because up until that time we were moving from place to place and having a real unstable environment. So I think she was more excited about getting our first home, and she was able to stay with us for a while. And it was just a very, very pleasant experience. So home ownership, it gives you, number one, financial stability. Number two, is give you strength in your own personal portfolio. And then we're going to talk about tax benefit and the pleasure of having a permanent residence and having a sense of community. Now, one of the things that I really enjoyed about the financial stability is that basically it provided me and my family with a lifestyle. And it, for me personally, I had a sense of accomplishment. And one of the things that at the time that I purchased my house a number of years ago, my mortgage payment monthly is less than some of the rent that I see is going up right now. Now, one of the things that I saw on bankrate.com, that even rent payments are going up 4% yearly. And once you be able to create your own mortgage for your own home, you're looking at a fixed rate, whether it's a 15 years, 20 years, or 30-year mortgage. And regardless of what inflation happens, and inflation will happen, that's one of the things that never stops, that your mortgage payment stays the same. And one of the things about having your a house and mortgage payment, you have what we call an asset. Now, I have mixed emotion about whether this is a home as an asset or not, but it is a way that you can strengthen your portfolio, because when you go to a bank or a financial institution, this is one of the things that you put on the asset column, even though technically it's not really an asset. But I get into that probably later, because also they ask you to put your car in there. They ask you to put some other things in there that you're still paying for. And that's the reason why I hesitate in saying whether it's an asset or not, because you're still paying. It's not paying you back. But that's another story for another time. But one of the things that you do have when you have a mortgage is that you're accumulating equity in that home. And I'm going to give you an example where basically, there's interest payment as well as a payment on the principal. But for the right now, you are accumulating equity. And the main thing, especially right now, when you're paying in let's say rent, you have no return on that. Everything going to the landlord or to that company that basically represent the landlord. One of the things that you, when you set your mortgage payment up, you need to make sure that there's no prepayment penalties in that. Most of the contracts now, they don't have that prepayment clause. So basically, you could turn your 30-year note into a 15 or even less than that. So let's talk about the tax benefit. So basically, there's many deductions, and I have an example of one of the things that I use on my first house that I'm going to talk about a little later. But your interest payments, your taxes, et cetera, are write-offs that you can use for that you can't do that if you're renting. There are other things that some of your insurance, and one of the things that you can use, especially now when everything is going green, if you let's say you put solar panels on your house, there is a deduction for that also. One of the things I think my mother appreciated more than anybody else that was living with us at the time is that we had a permanent resident. That means that basically prior to that, basically from the way I grew up, we were moving from apartments to apartments, from house to house, and it was actually taxing on our spirit, on our souls, and our body, not having that stability. And don't think about the inconvenience of moving and the expense of hauling your stuff from one place to another. That is one of the values of home ownership. And one of the things that also that it could be you move into what the people call your forever home, which means that you have the peace of mind that this is going to be your last move. One of the things that I least like about, I guess, having to take a different jobs is moving. You never realize how much stuff and I'll say stuff, and I also say junk that you accumulate. And I used to have the 6 month rule is basically if you haven't used it in 6 months, that means that you need to get rid of it. But we never did. So home ownership can be a very, very good stress reliever. Also, when you move into a community, you build lifelong friends. Not only for you, but when my children were young, they had childhood friends that they grew up with, which extended to the sense of community. Meaning that basically went to the same schools. Basically, we had the shopping centers that we really enjoyed. When we decided on purchasing the house, we knew that basically the school district we were moving into, we actually looked into the shopping area and, et cetera, et cetera. Those things was very important. Basically, we knew, matter of fact, since I moved out of the community that my children grew up in, I still see some of my old friends back that still are living in that same area. So one of the things reason why I guess I'm a little bullish on home ownership as a particular investment property. Now, when I say home ownership, I have to give you full disclosure. One of the things that I highly suggest, especially, and this all depends on, your family size and your lifestyle, et cetera, is that your first home should be either a duplex, triplex, or quadplex, which means that if you can, it has the advantages of the same home ownership, but you have other people paying your mortgage note. And the mortgage note is probably the largest expense that you ever paid for. Second, here's my spiel. And this is my I'll take 2 minutes of being on my soapbox. If you take $20,000 and let's say that I was going to invest that in Amazon stock, which is a very good stock, and I recommend that basically if you are into stocks, that won't be one that you should purchase. If in a year, you might get a 10% increase, which means that basically you made $2,000 on your $20,000, which is not a bad investment. But think about it. If you use that same $20,000 to purchase a $400,000 home, that real estate is not that you purchase is what we call leverage. And if I have time, I go back into my 5 things. Leverage is one of my 5 things that I always talk about. Is that, and I purchased a $400,000 home. My increase is not on the $20,000 I put in. It's on the $400,000 of the property that I have just been a part of, which means that $20,000 have just increased 40%, where my increase on the stock at 10% of that $20,000 was only 10%, buying this house increased 40%. You know, for all your math majors, you can do the math on that. But for us simple people, you're talking the difference between 10% and 40%, which is a very great deal. Now, one of the things that basically I want to share with you, and basically I took some notes, so I'm gonna read some notes about my first purchase. And since you can't see it on the camera, so let's say basically when I would purchase my first home, I was making $70,000. So my mortgage was $2,800 per month. The interest on that loan was $1,850. I was paying $350 in the principal and $400 per month that was on my property tax, and $100 on insurance. And since I paid less than 5%, anywhere between 3.5 to 5%, you have to what they call a PMI, which is a private mortgage insurance, was $150. Now, let's go at the end of the year. My interest that I paid, remember I told you it was $1,850, and you do that times 12 for $22,200. And if you look at my property tax, which was $400, so basically that equals about $4,800. So just simply because I had more advantages than what I'm going to share with you, is that my taxable income to the IRS was $70,000, correct? My taxable write-off on my home alone was $27,000, which means that basically I was only paying taxes on $43,000 roughly. So what I'm sharing with you, the value just only that one piece of property is that, you know, I need to tell you about my other child income taxes and other write-offs, but I saved $10,200 that I would have to pay IRS if I didn't have home ownership. So just the value of just the home in itself would make a viable sense. Now, I know the Economic Times doesn't lend a lot of people saying basically, you know, the most difficult thing that you can do right now is purchase a home. I understand what inflation is, you know, the highest has been in the last 20 years. I know the interest rate is over close to 7%. But here's the advantage. If you are really looking at purchasing a home, since the economy is where it is, most people are not looking to buy. Now, when the economy corrects itself, which I'm assuming that within the next election cycle, it will make its own correction. One of the things that since the election is almost like we're almost a year away from the presidential election, most people are hesitant, politicians, economists, or making any major move. So I have a question. They're saying it back. Why is it smart to buy now? And I'm going to answer that. Is that even though the interest rate is higher, their competition of buying right now is going to be lower than when it was like 3 years ago, when I don't know if you remember, but it was down to 2.7%, and that's had to be like about 4 years ago. So if the interest rates start coming down, you're going to have more competition to get into different communities than you would less than right now. So that is one of the advantages of doing it now than waiting until later when everybody is going to be jumping into the market. If you do your homework correctly, and then we're going to talk about what do you need to do now and what do you need to know now, and to take advantage of where you are right now. we're going to get ready to take a commercial break. And after the break, we're going to talk about what do you need to do now to position yourself to be able to purchase probably the most expensive thing that you will have in your life and most valuable thing that you have in your life. Let's go to the commercial break.
Cammie's Closet, Cammie's Closet, Cammie's Closet, an upscale resale clothing, vintage clothing, handbag, and shoes online store. Cammie's Closet, spelled with a K, not with a T, is a small upscale resale boutique that carry gently used name brand clothing, vintage clothing, shoes, and handbags. Cammie's Closet is all about rediscovering, upcycling, and selling clothes of all kinds. Cammie's Closet believes it's an underappreciated form of clothing, and they started a win-win for everyone. The true value of resale. Cammie's Closet is very aficionado, passionate about rediscovering, upcycling, and reselling upscale resale and vintage clothing of all kinds. Go to cammiescloset.com. That's K, not a T, A-M-I-S-K, not a C, L-O-S-E-T. cammiescloset.com.
Welcome back to the Dr. Ron Smith Investigating Show. We're talking about the value of home ownership, and this is episode 26. And one of the things that we mentioned in the first half is that the value is basically give you financial stability. It gives you financial strength. We talk about tax benefit. We talk about permanent residence and the sense of community. And one of the things that I'm very proud of. My mother was able to live with us into the home that, matter of fact, first and second house that we purchased. And that was one of her things that I know that she didn't really express that, but I know since we did move around from apartment to apartment to house, I know that was very important to her. And one of the things we left off, we talked about why I would purchase now. And because of the advantages that, remember, I told you about my first house. And basically, my salary at that time was $70,000. And the write-offs that I did for my first house was $27,000. So basically, my taxable income was roughly $43,000. Just for home ownership. Now, how do we get ready and prepare for that? Remember, now, my suggestion, and I'm a big believer in that, is that home ownership is important. Now, how you obtain that is you could do that in various different ways. Remember, I use the example of if I had $20,000, I could either buy stocks in Amazon and gain a 10% on that, and that's 10% per year. Or I can use the same $20,000 and purchase a $400,000 home, which means that my using leverage, that would be a 40% increase in value. And we don't have to be a mathematician to figure out what is the difference and what we should actually do. So with that in mind, think about buying a duplex, a triplex, or quadplex. That has always been my position. A lot of people want to be their own house, and they want to, no neighbors. They want the 3 or 4 car garage. They want the 4-bedroom or 3.5 bath, and they et cetera, et cetera. At the same time, and if that's your desire and that's your position you take, I say more power to you. I have no conflict with that. At the same time, I'm saying that buying a home is one of the most expensive things that you're going to purchase. So there's ways that you can house hack and still get the same benefits of having that home. So when you have a duplex, triplex, or quadplex, other tenants are paying what your mortgage is. So basically, highly consider that, because then you would not be prohibited from getting into the market. One of the things I know is that having the down payment is the biggest challenge. So basically, that's the reason why you need to make sure that you have your budget, which is your expenses and your income, and having your assets and liability, and making sure those things are in order. Because basically, when you see it, you will be more advantageous to change. Now, I have a question coming in, and the question is, how do you adapt your advice to changes in a client's personal and financial situation? Well, one of the things I always ask, because one size don't fit all, I ask the person, what do they want to accomplish? Now, when I first bought my first home, it was actually buying a home. I was not looking for investment because I didn't have that knowledge of what I could have done. Now that I've been in the game for financial situation and actually learn how this make this thing work for me, I would ask the person, what do they aspire? A single person is different from a person who's married, and a person who have a married and having children is different from all the two other examples. And if you have multiple children, that even dictates another paradigm. So it all depends on what your financial situation is. But two things that I know for sure: buying a home and buying a car are two of the major expenses that you would actually of necessity. Now, there's other expenses, that you can purchase, but those things are not really a necessity. What you eat, what you drive, and what you live in are the major, that's vital to life type things. So you need to consider those things. But in the long run, if you're starting in your career or your middle career, or you are getting ready to retirement, those three things that you will still have to do. So why not take it's not necessarily, I would say, the simple way to do it, but use those advantages to in your favor. One of the things that I hesitate with home ownership is there is a value in home ownership, but also you got to think about it. Right now, if you're if you don't purchase your home in cash, the mortgage company or the financial institution is the actual owner of that piece of property. So you miss a couple of mortgage payment, you'll find out real quick who owns that property. So my point is that once you have using leverage to get the property, and now you using leverage again of having other people paying your mortgage, that is to your advantage. And the faster you can get that done, the faster you can just think about it. The largest expense that you have will be your home. And if you eliminate that larger expense, you'll be able to have capital to do other investments or reinvestment in other real estate property, which I would suggest you do. So you think about it, whether you got your 401k or you got your IRA, compared to real estate has, even though the market goes up and down, just like it goes up and down for the stock market, but what retains its value more than anything else has been real estate, besides gold. Gold has always and always will be king. So, if you want to ask me, I ask you, what your status is, and if you have done all these other things, I say, you need to own some gold, because that's the only thing that actually is king to anything. People say cash is king, but inflation will make cash disappear. So what do you need to know? One of the things that you have to be sure of, besides, your budget and, knowing what your assets and liabilities are, you need to know what your FICO score is, because that determines how much leverage you can use. So, free credit report, free credit score, go to the Experian Transfusion Equifax, go directly get your credit score, know what your FICO score is, because what you want to have is 580 and above. That's what you would really want to have. You need to have that because that would determine whether you put down 3.5%, 5%, or the 20%. Now, if you're a veteran, basically make sure you talk to one of your veterans advisor, because you could get veterans could get a 0% increase. Next thing is that you need to find a reputable real estate agent. Now, one of the things that I want to say off the top, when you talk to a real estate agent, you need to understand, first of all, and this is how Ron Smith investigates get down, how do that person get paid? And the real estate agent get paid when the house is sold. So you need to realize that even though the real estate is probably the most friendly, most kind, the most nice person that you ever would meet, basically they're in it to sell the house. So when they get ready to negotiate, basically you have to realize that who they actually work for. You have to consider that. And basically they work for the seller, long story short. So here's the 5 expenses that you would have when you're buying. Basically, you need the earnest money, home inspection, appraiser fees, the closing costs, and the down payment. Now, down payment, as I mentioned before, it could be 0%. It could be anywhere from 3 to 20%. That's all depends on your FICO score and what you have accumulated in that. Closing costs, that's going to be either 2 to 5% of sale. So that's where the attorney fees and all the other admin fees that you have when you get ready to, that closing date. I mean, the day that you're being excited, you looked at the property, everything goes well, you got the down payment, now it's down to closing. Before that, then basically you have your appraiser fee. Basically, every house has to be reappraised, and basically you look at the neighborhood, what's the market value. Now, home inspection, I highly recommend that you get a home inspection, because basically, you remember episode, I think episode 23, I talk about what you need to look for from the exterior to the interior, the basement and attic, et cetera, et cetera. Maybe I have time. I don't have time to talk about those things right now, but maybe I'll reintroduce those things on a following show. Earnest money, that separates the men from the boys and the women from the girls. Basically, it normally is 1% of the contract. When you put that down, people know that you're serious about this piece of property. That's what you need to have in place. So I talked about the value of home ownership, and I gave you some tips on actually how that works for you. And one of the things for sure, it give you the peace of mind that basically I don't have to, move, travel, haul all my stuff again. I moved several times and it's no fun. But one of the things that you also should keep in mind is that if this is your dream, you may have to plan for it. We used to say when I was in the Marine Corps, proper planning prevent poor performance. So basically, you need to know what your FICO score is. You need to find out, basically, get with a real estate, let them know what you want, and then you start, going to the prospect or searching. So I hope those things that we mentioned today either inspire you or give you a reason to think about the value of home ownership. My time is up right now, and I know your time is valuable, and I thank you for yours.